You're right. In terms of numbers.
So how many?
Because we had 3 that said no, like no.
Seen a bunch of people that
And then there'll be a bunch of people who just don't say in traffic or forget. Well, the job's not here.
Yeah, true.
I love how you've got your gaming like
Oh,
ID.
it's because this is my personal account.
I
Until
know.
we switch over.
To GDG Auckland. But
Yeah.
you can you sign into GDG Auckland?
Yeah. I've
Should
just
be
been,
able to.
I just need to set it up. I need a mobile phone number as well. I don't know if I can use it, but the one of them use for this.
For this thing.
Yeah, to be able to stream, to sign up.
This is for YouTube gaming.
YouTube Live. Yeah, I guess it is YouTube Gaming. It's technically just YouTube Live.
Yeah, what's the difference between that and what's the other thing, casting thing? No, is it another one like YouTube?
Yes.
That's how your books are always very potato. She's always got more to do.
I need to.
I just throw in like Matrix or Shield. That's my gags. Although I didn't put any of those. So yeah. Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Get it out of the way, don't you?
Yeah.
You want to start
I'll bore everyone.
People start talking about the MVP stuff and
Yeah.
actually John going. I don't know how long this is.
Well, it'll be good to roll what 4 sections. 3 talks.
Oh, you didn't use it then? I like music.
Yeah, it's
kind of like you don't have to think too much.
Just sort of let your mind do whatever it does. Oh yeah. It's,
You can do that with in fact, yeah, you can do it with that. You looked it up.
I'll try it for next time. True.
Slides.
The slides app.
But problem is you want to go through that. So you want to go through your
Should it know that I'm
oh
presenting?
no, hang on a second, because you'll put that into that. So slides goes into that. That goes out, which goes into this, and it should be fine.
Except I can't just present over Chromecast because I need to show the code.
Oh, you're gonna flip.
IDE.
Yeah, he has the idea.
It has to be this way.
That's where you want to have another splitter. Right. True though, right?
Well, I can switch between them. It
No,
just
because,
takes-
yeah, but you could have a second splitter that has input of this and this and this. Right? And then they go into the input of that. Which then gets split to that, which then gets split to that.
So ridiculous. No.
They're becoming cheaper. It used to be horrendously expensive.
All of this has been streamed. No conversation. Wow. So, all right. Thanks everyone for coming. Yet another GDG. We'll have a few talks. Then we'll have probably a couple of talks, and then a quick break, and then we might have another talk, and then some news. So this might be here for a little while. So let's get started. You've all heard about the bottom navigation bar, right? It's not a very common view in the Android world. In fact, it only recently became a standard view in material design. It was 2 or 3 months ago. So there are very few apps that are actually making use of it. And it's got some great advantages. So let's take a look at what advantages it can bring to your app and how to go about implementing it. What is it? In case for those that don't really know Android that well, the bottom navigation bar. The main idea behind it is it switches between top level sections or views in a single tap. There's a bunch of information. In fact, there's a very detailed breakdown of what the bottom navigation bar should do, how it should behave, how it should look according to the material guidelines. I won't quite go there. You can take a look at it. But if you are going to implement it, definitely take a look, because there are some really valuable recommendations defined in there. So as for the specs that I was mentioning, it's supposed to be 3 to 5 sections. You're supposed to be using the primary color of the app, or black and white if you've got a colored navigation bar. You can either use text or icons depending on how many sections you've got. Yeah, etc., etc. Like as I said, lots of really well-defined specs. And then you've got, I mentioned that it's recommendations. So Google just pushed out this, what seems to be A/B testing of a bottom navigation bar implementation. As you can see, there is no text at the bottom of the icons. There is an overflow icon on the right-hand side, which is not a section. It breaks a few of the specifications detailed in the bottom navigation document, as is commonly the case with Google. But what I'm trying to say here is the material guidelines really are just guidelines. They give you a great basis of which to work, but in many cases, or in some cases, your particular situation will mean that some decisions might need to change. Some designs might not work as well, or maybe it'll work better if you change it differently, if you make it slightly different. So just understand that they're guidelines and that you can break them if you've got a good reason to. Now, yeah, why use it? There are plenty of other navigation options that you can use. There's the navigation drawer, there's the action bar on the top, there's literally buttons inside your view. You can navigate to different sections, and you've got the tab view. But they all have their issues, right? The navigation drawer hides content from the user. None of the sections are immediately visible, and a lot of people, especially people that aren't adventurous to play around with apps and get to learn new paradigms, don't know that the hamburger menu opens up a whole section of options. So hidden content for the navigation drawer. The action bar, again, small icons. It's not very obvious necessarily what they do or that they're there to begin with. They don't take up a lot of space on the screen, so it's good for smaller actions, not so great for navigating large content sections in your app. Buttons, as I said, they exist in the screen, so if you change section, the buttons disappear. And the same issue with tabs. we change sections, then the tabs will disappear. If we take a look at the hamburger menu, because that's been the main form of navigation for most Android apps for a while now. As I mentioned, they hide content from the user. And what's interesting is there have been some studies, or some companies have made A/B studies investigating just how difficult it is for new users to discover the content in the navigation drawer. And this particular study, there's the link there if you want to take a look at it, compared navigation drawer to a bottom navigation bar. And they found that they got twice as much engagement in these new sections using the bottom navigation drawer, primarily because it's right there, it's visible, it's available, and it's easy to access. The other thing is, some people have really strong opinions about the navigation drawer. Some people have really strong opinions about the navigation drawer. So yeah, let's take a look at this option. The advantages, as I said, content immediately visible and discoverable, easily accessible. You don't need to tap anything else before you get to the section. It persists over multiple screens, unlike some of the other options like tab navigation. It's clearly labeled, it's got the icon and the text, and it's intuitive. So some great advantages there. Live demo. Okay. Let's hope that doesn't happen. So, right, I'll preface this by saying that this is what happens when you sitting down on the couch next to your partner and you decide to make a little demo app. You get an app called Cuteness Overload. So this is a little demo app that I put together. The source code is available on GitHub if you want to take a look at it. The idea behind it is to show you guys how you can go ahead about implementing a bottom navigation bar without using libraries, and perhaps more importantly, how you can maintain state within each section, because that's an implementation detail that is not immediately straightforward or obvious. So what is this app? We've got 3 sections at the bottom here. Apologies for the incorrect icons. I have no artistic talent. If we switch between them, there should be no view page style animations because they are separate sections. You shouldn't be able to swipe between the sections either, as defined in the material guidelines. It's just a normal app, right? 3 sections, it's all fine. But the interesting thing about this is that if you switch to another section, say I'm looking at this one here. If we switch to the cat section and scroll down a bit, we should be able to come back to the dog section and be looking at obvious fun. Right? So the idea is that the user can maintain their state in each of the sections so that they can work effectively in each of the sections. So they're filling out a form in the first section. They switch over to check something else in your app, and then come back. They shouldn't have to lose that state, and it can be very frustrating to the user if they do, because there's no clear indication that by changing sections you are losing information. So that's the quick live demo. How to go about it? Right, so I mentioned libraries. There are some libraries you can use. If you're going to implement this, definitely take a look at them. Big advantages to libraries are they're usually just plug and play, very simple to use. Additionally, some of these libraries have some nice functionality, animations, and default drawing. But then there's the DIY, and you might want to decide to implement it yourself. 1, because it's actually quite simple. 2, because it can reduce the number of method calls for your dex limit, which can be actually quite valuable. And on occasion, some of the libraries won't do what you need them to, so you might need to do it yourself, either by starting from scratch or extending one of the existing libraries. So, understand code. Let's take a quick look. Right. So, I don't want to bore you guys too much. You can't really see that, can you? Okay. Yeah. Let's take a look at right. So this is the main layout. It's literally just your coordinated layout. Sorry, should be using my mouse. With the frame layout, which is the actual section contents, and then the bottom navigation bar. The bottom navigation bar is literally, take a look at the code, it just extends a tab layout. So the tab layout is a widget which comes with the support library. So you're not adding any more methods or code than is probably already in your project. And then the actual implementation of this is really straightforward. What you really have is you define these tab holders for each of your sections, and it really is, yeah, it's just your basic tab holder implementation. And somewhere in here you would have your tab selected listener, which calls into your activity. In your activity, you've got your 3 sections, and the sections are implemented as fragments. And this is where we start moving away from the bottom navigation widget implementation into how do you actually maintain state. So each of your sections is a fragment, and the general idea that we're going to take is allow the system to use the existing state saving mechanisms to do all the heavy work for us. For those of you that don't like fragments, there are alternatives to this exact same approach, but the idea is effectively the same. What we're going to do is whenever you navigate to a fragment, we're going to, let's go navigate to dog section, for example. If your dog fragment section is null, then we're going to new up a new fragment, and then we'll add that fragment to our activity layout. Otherwise, we'll just show it. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Adding it, a fragment is just adding it, and showing it is calling show. The idea is that as you add sections to your fragment, as you add fragments to your activity, instead of removing the fragments once you're done with them, you're hiding them. So all 3 fragments, as you navigate to them, will be added to your activity, so that they're not destroyed by the system. That's the general approach, and I suppose it's the easy way to get around it. So don't allow the system to destroy any fragments, because we want to maintain their state, and instead hide and show them. So your first reaction might be, well, what about memory usage? You've got all these potentially up to 5 fragments that are connected to the activity. Isn't that going to cause, isn't that quite a burden? From my experience, it's okay. Having 5 fragments, or up to 5 fragments connected to your activity. Having said that, you should be aware of the situation and minimize or allow the system to garbage collect as much memory as possible on the fragments that aren't visible. So for example, in onStop, try to remove as many references from data that you don't need or that you can retrieve on start when your fragment is redisplayed. Besides that, it just works. If you want to take a look at that implementation. but it's really straightforward, and yeah, it works well. So that's that bit. Right. So now that I've gone through a bit of the code, I want to tell you what not to do. So you might be tempted to say, oh, I don't like fragments. I'm just going to avoid them. I'm going to implement everything through activities. The one of the main issues with that is each section would then have to be an activity, and as you navigate between activities, there's no built-in way for activities to maintain their state once you've navigated away from them, once an activity is finished. Additionally, to switch between, well, actually, there is a way of maintaining activities alive without navigating away from them, and that is using tasks, which actually works rather well, and it would work. It probably would be an approach that I would have investigated further, except there are system bugs in Lollipop and Marshmallow which prevent anyone from being able to do it. And the bug is that when you create separate tasks for your activities, there's a flag that you can define in the manifest to hide the activities from the recents menu, from the recents list. However, on Lollipop and Marshmallow, the first time you press the recents button, you'll end up with 2 activities being displayed in the recents menu instead of the one for your application that you actually want. So feel free to, there's a link to the bug there, feel free to add a star to it, because it's been around for a while and they're not really paying much attention to it. I wasn't able to find any workaround for the bug, so yeah, it's a shame. Otherwise it would have been a really, really interesting approach to have taken. Manually recreating the activity backstack. Right, so if you do decide to maintain your own state within the activities, you still come across issues of recreating the activity backstack for each of the sections. If you're using start activity for result, which is a fairly reasonable way of getting results from one screen to another. So again, it doesn't really work that well. So the magic ingredients, as I've said, make use of the tab layout if you're creating your own implementation. Maintain fragments attached to the activity and offload state management to the system, and navigate to each of the different sections by showing and hiding the fragments. So this is our current layout. We've got activity and 3 fragments attached to the activity. So you ask yourself, well, this is a really simple app. What happens to more complicated apps? And that's where it starts getting really interesting. So you usually navigate within a section. So yeah, exactly. How do you navigate inside a section? What you can do is you can create these shell section fragments, which are like, you minimize the amount of code that's in them to minimize the amount of memory usage. And what you then do is you attach each of your screen fragments to the section fragment. So the section fragment now becomes a manager of these screen fragments. So that when you navigate to a new fragment, you are, in this case, committing the fragment to the backstack, to the section, to the particular section fragment's backstack. To the particular section fragment manager, as opposed to the activities fragment manager. That way you're building up a backstack in each activity, which you can easily manage and switch between. So yeah, there you go. You've got your 3 fragments. You can now press back and go back into a different, into the previous fragment in the section. But then of course, in comes the designer and he says, hey, can I have a view pager in one of these screens? And you're like, well, do we have to? So how would you go about doing that? Well, one way of doing that is having, and also each of the screens inside your view pager is complicated enough that it warrants making into a fragment. So you end up with this fragment which hosts a fragment, which hosts fragments. And of course, if you get an error in one of those fragments, well, you're going to show up a dialog. So you've got a dialog inside your fragment, which is hosted by a fragment inside a fragment, which is inside an activity. So there's a lot going on here. But as I said, the approach that I'm recommending compartmentalizes the logic and does a good job of maintaining the state of each section and minimizing the amount of memory being used to something that's reasonable. Now, if your app were to use a lot of memory, I'd probably suggest looking into a different approach, maybe not using fragments at all, but maybe using more of a fragmentless framework like a conductor, which may be less memory intensive. You could look into maintaining your own state for each section, but it's going to become a lot of work. So if you did want to implement something like this is definitely the approach that I would take, at least initially, unless it doesn't suit your needs for some reason. Yeah, at that stage, you just, right, as I said, source code is available on GitHub through that link. Questions?
Could you integrate a fragment pager adapter for your custom bottom navigation?
Yes, absolutely. It does simplify some work, and it doesn't. It's completely compatible. So yeah, it doesn't. When I say it simplifies your work, using a view pager is the natural approach that generally you should take. Not using a view pager is going to complicate things, but using it won't make things harder. That's what I'm trying to say. More questions? Cool. Well, thanks for staying awake. Right. Yeah.
Do you want to have a little break for a minute? Just to chill out for a second. Sure. Oh.
Just while we switch over things.
It is. It's actually it's also the quick factor.
Hello everyone. I'm Saurabh. I work at Pfizer. Uh, so MVP. You guys might have heard about many design patterns. You might be thinking that I'm doing design patterns. Do I need to really follow it? That I can just do my work. I have very small app. I don't need to worry about. I can create a fragment, XML views, model, retrofit, dagger, done. App is on the Google Play Store. What's so why I need to care about all of this? Yep, that particular approach works. Apps are on Google Play Store. Um, but interestingly, when, for example, if you are building an app, a client says that okay, I need only two jobs. Okay, app is pretty cool. A lot of users are downloading. Let's start putting more functionality day by day. Oh, that's complex. Can I refactor it? We go to client. Do you want me to pay for your mistakes? Not really, right? It ends up like this. So you have food. You won't eat one. Food gets brought on and you won't eat it. A similar way, why it happens? Spreading business logic across me. Sometimes I feel that like, what's actually a view? What's so nice about every day when we go, we see lots of views outside. What's actually changing behind that? I want to ask the question, when you have a login screen, do you change the login action every time, every single day? I'm talking about action when you click on, click listener, and you put a code, maybe a calling backend. You don't change that code, even though you might be changing the UI hundreds of times, orange to green, green to red, green, yellow to red, or whatever. You may be putting your control sometimes at bottom, sometimes at top, sometimes button is rounded, sometimes button is square, and maybe next year Android comes in with another material design guidelines or something. Oh, that's so cool. But I don't think so. We are going to change the backend in that because that's going to be a big deal. So if you want to change a view, how easily we change it? Can anyone give me an example that, hey, I've changed the view without changing any business logic, without any copying any stuff? Generally, we have fragments. If you want to maintain an older app, you want a new app. Okay, let's copy and paste this fragment. I don't want to deal with old code. But then you end up doing the same thing. While it's a solid design principle, I think that lots of people heard about it. Sometimes I feel that it all applies to the .NET world when people are developing a server code. It doesn't apply to the any front-end code, but I think it really applies to that as well. It's just the front-end code is bit visible, and everyone cares about it. But it's a simple thing that when you give an app to a client or any user, obviously they're not going to look at your back-end code or anything. They don't even look at the UI code, but front-end is visible. If it breaks, it's a big deal. Even though backend breaks, it's a big deal. But if you have a crash, but backend is all fine, it's a big deal. Not following the best practices, I've just put up this comment that sometimes we go outside of the system. WebView, how many people have played with a WebView? Lots of people might have played with a WebView in an app, Cordova, everything. So not following the best practices, sometimes it hurts. And it can lead to some apps. Why design patterns? Why am I enforcing the design pattern? I can give you a classic example that design patterns help to enforce the structure around the developer. For example, you have input field, it has a 10 different validations, and that different validations are reusable in different text fields. you're not only having a text field only on a login page, you can have a text field anywhere in the app, which design pattern we can implement to solve that problem. So it comes in my mind that I was looking at a partial library to implement a strategy pattern. You can have an interface, it's valid, and you can implement different validations, and you can apply that. Patterns not only help to solve the problems, but they are the more maintainable, reusable, to make the code more maintainable, reusable, and testable. Because sometimes when you go and write a unit test on old code, you find, oh, it's having lots of dependencies. I can't easily test it. The code is not loosely tested, very tightly tested. It's not talking to an interface. It's all talking to a concrete objects. We often face these issues. Some examples of the design pattern, MVC, very classic. If anyone is an iOS developer, Apple's first slide in Stanford code talks about MVC, but that's Apple's MVC, that's not the traditional MVC. MVP, which I'm going to present it today, and MVVM is more like, I'm not a Microsoft developer. It's in a Microsoft Word. Windows Phone development, it's pretty cool. Some other patterns, Django 4, like relational factory methods, singleton. We all like singletons. Dagger is making easier for us. Add singletons done. Structural patterns, facade, adapter, decorator, and behavior, command, and strategy. So strategy, I'll just give you an example. There are lots of pages on the internet which can talk about all of these patterns. I'm not going to talk about all. I usually read them many times. Sometimes I understand, sometimes I don't. And I try to follow that if I can solve the problem using the pattern. That's a typical Android architecture, right? You have activity, multiple sections, you have views, and going all over the places. What's classic Android is? Why I need MVP? Why I should care about it? XML is view. Activity and fragment is kind of a controller. The rest is all model. My data we are getting from content provider or SQLite. It's all data, right? What if I say that activity and fragment, they are also views? What's the problem with this classic Android architecture? This architecture leads to a God object which does everything. For example, your activity is responsible to inflate a view, make a service form, handle the response, update the view. And if we want to change a view, one option is change an XML, keep your ID same, otherwise it will break your button click list because you won't find a button and then it will crash. You keep buttons and same everything. Yeah, you're going into conventional direction now. That hey, don't break the ID. You can change all of the views here and there. But how about if your view types are changing? If you have a button, normal button, but if you're changing a view, you have a custom button. Obviously, you need to change the code. And then service layer, if backend is changing, okay, I'll go in this activity. I'll do. So what we are violating over here, single responsibility principle, which is the first S of the solid system, is that activity object has more than one reason to do. We change it because backend is changing, we change it because view is changing, we change it because the data of anything is changing, a model is changing. Why MVP? Separation of concerns. That's why I'm saying MVP. I don't feel that MVP is just a terminology. Sometimes when we are talking, when we are in a meeting, we talk on a terminology. We don't actually say that okay, this is some stuff we know that how to develop it, but we come across which everyone can understand, right? That's why we have MVC. What's MVC? MVC. It's nothing. It's model view controller. Controller handles view and controller handles the model. It's all known. In actual coding, you're not going to say that, okay, this is my view, this is model. Yeah, you need to code it in such a way that so that it follows that. In a similar way, separation of concern can be achieved, and you will end up having MVP pattern, or you will end up having an MVC pattern if you properly follow the solid principle, and if you say that, okay, I need to focus on separation of concern. Flexibility, each layer is responsible for its own things. Not view is not responsible to update the model. Control model is not responsible to update the view, and it's the presenter is actually talking to the view. Testability. How many of people have written? Can we write only a JUnit test, not an Android unit test? I'm not talking about Android unit test. If you have any service layer, you have like all of that service layer logic in your activity. Can we write a JUnit test for that activity? You can't write. You need to do Android UI unit test, and then you end up mocking your backend service, but that becomes a UI test. You need emulator to run it, everything. Or you may use a mock feature and mock application. So test layers in isolation. Modularity. This is a big thing. Sometimes I believe that code is modular enough or not. You can have one single project which has everything. You can divide into a bunch of packages. How about if you get an app and you want to share some code? Obviously, you need to divide into modules so that you can share it more. And you will be able to share only when you focus on separation of concerns. You're not mixing and matching. Maintainable, obviously, we all are developers. Once upon a time, in a lifetime actually, we always maintain old code. And we say, oh, that's bad code. Why I'm maintaining this? I can rewrite everything. Reusable. Yep, code will be reusable. For example, if you follow the proper patterns, validation, routing, anything. How it fits, how MVP fits in Android. Activities, fragments, all views are just views. They are considered as a view in MVP. Views handle everything that happens on a UI side. Just to make it more clear that whatever happens on a UI side, view is handling that. View objects. Data layer consists of model objects, SQLite, API data, content providers, because you will have some objects. They are talking to either a cloud service or they are talking to SQLite or whatever. Presenter gets the data from data layer and updates the view. I'll show you one classic example where you will say that why am I supposed to this object to do updates. They also respond to the view. So this is where the difference is in MVC. People are developing iOS, that where you add your handlers, you attach your actions into a controller. And in this one, yeah, view will actually add a listener, but presenters are going to handle that. It's not going to be the activity object is directly talking to service API. So they are just going to delegate this to another object. Keep presenters and model non-empty. So that's one thing that you may be getting into trouble. Oh, can I pass my context into presenter? And presenter will do. So basic idea is that as long as we can keep the presenters and model non-empty, it means that they are shareable. So we can write non-empty unit tests as well as test them quickly. Um, in the flow, for example, user does the action, um, view receives the action, for example, a button click, it goes to a presenter that, hey, someone has clicked this thing, you can handle that. Presenter actually gets the data from the model. Model can send the data using an event or response handlers, and then presenter actually tells the view, hey, here is your data. Presenter actually may adapt the data according to the view, what view needs it, but presenter maintains it. Yeah, you may be saying that no, I have a data in a view. No, but that data is always needed by view because otherwise you won't show anything. So, but it's not, view is not holding the data. Let's see some code. Um, and this here actually, I was playing around with one app where I was doing the barcode scanning on Android. Google has released an API for that, Vision APIs. So we can just have a look. I've not. I started with the old style. Um, this is an activity I can show you. Um, so this activity is extending from a base activity which is abstract. Um, it's it's having a model object with username and password. It's validating the data. Is valid email and which text user is an Android company. It's validating a password, and once it validates everything, it updates the view as well, and then if form is valid, then it goes there. Okay, I'm going to do a call, and then when it gets back the result, either it will go to another activity or it will run. So this is standard, right? I have XML, I have activity. Nothing is wrong about this. We all do it. How about if I wanted to change a view drastically in this? I won't be able to. I can copy and paste, or I can divide all of this into functions. But still, you are going to create another activity, right? So you log in new activity. Okay, let's create a new activity, new design, uh, and and you end up copying and pasting a little bit some code from here because obviously this thing is not changing, right? Validations, click list, click handlers, they are not changing. Only view is changing. Ultimately, you are going to validate anything. Ultimately, you need to validate password, empty password. You're not going to validate whether it's right or wrong. And then sending the call. So this works fine. This is okay. But in case of MVP, um, uh, I started doing this thing. That okay, let's try this idea. Where I go, it's not finished yet. Lots of activities are there. So first part of the thing is let's define a contract. What's my presenter can do it, and what's my view needs to do it when I'm sending a request or when I'm getting it. So I have a login contract here. I have a view here. So view, obviously, when I'm going to send a request, I need to show progress bar. When I'm receiving a response, I need to hide it. And when response is okay, I need to say that okay, start another activity. If something is wrong, I need to show an alert or post message. So this is all views concerned, right? Showing progress bar, hiding progress bar, starting personality. Obviously, presenter can start it, but this is all going to happen on a UI web. Showing alert display doors. What's presenter's responsibilities? Do a call, verify that whether credentials are valid or not, get username, if it is remembered, if it is you have saved in the shared preferences, and do some validations. Now, if any view implements this interface, we can have this present. You write a view, another view implement this interface. It doesn't matter how you show the progress bar. In the past, like an old one, you may have shown it like, okay, I'm going to show it Android something. No, I don't like Android something. I'm going to make a full screen loading screen or whatever. It doesn't matter because from the presenter point of view, presenter just needs to call that a show screen. I don't care what you show it, how to show it. I'm just going to say that a show it. So this is first step. When you start thinking that what's your business logic, put it into a presenter, what's your view, and define the responsibilities. And this is another thing, they are all going to talk to just an interface. They're not talking to concrete objects, so you can implement them. So next part is login presenter. So in case of login presenter, the first thing is it's just an object. Yep, it's going to hold a view instance, but the type is just talking to it's going to be interface type. Yeah, obviously interface needs to call something on a view, so it needs it. This is a business, and then this is a login. And then we have, this is all just dagger that it will satisfy all of the dependencies. And then we have it says that check access. And then I'm saying that hey, view show progress bar. It's going to the view. It's not trying to show here that hey, show loading screen or show progress bar. And then it performs a check. And then it goes to this, and then it's going to say, okay, I got an error. Hey, login, show alert. You may argue that why I'm passing these strings. This is the Android specific. Yeah. So in this case, we need to send back a code error code so that we know the error. And then failure display toast, and then hide progress bar. And then getting a username, okay, I'm going to get it from here, validations, and everything. So this is all presenter. Presenter is not doing any stuff with the view related. It's delegating all of the things to the view. You need to do it. I'm just a mediator between you and the model. And then what's my view? In my view should be done by as much as it can be, because it just needs to present data. It needs to listen. So on create, I'm going to say that okay, satisfy this dependency. I need a presenter. View will have a presenter. And then on resume, I'm going to ask presenter, hey, give me a username because I need to show it. Give me a password if it is remembered. And then on a login action, I'm going to ask the presenter, hey, is it valid? If it is not valid, then I'm going to show an error. If it is all valid, then okay, go on and do the job. And then show alert, it's all view over So there is no business logic. A bunch of methods are implemented and presenter is just going to call them. And if we want to change a view, you can share your presenter, right? As long as we implement this interface, because presenter only knows about this. Presenter does not even know about what is login activity. Presenter does not care about it. You're not going to say that okay, fragment type of instances there in a presenter. Otherwise it will become encoded. These are just, and you can mock it easily because they're just expressive. And then it's just the basic stuff. It's a dagger. Nothing very fancy. Everyone is aware about dagger. I think people have much more experience than me. And then we can have a look at the unit test of a presenter. So in a presenter, what we have in a unit test is we are going to mock this view class, and all of this is test email is valid, is invalid, get username, get password. I'm still working on that, like how I can test the retrofit API, retrofit call that can be mocked easily. And these are all, this is just a J unit test. This is not end-to-end unit test at all. It does not need any instrumentation design. This is where the things come in effect interesting, that you can run J unit test. Why you need to run an end-to-end? And because it's not having any Android stuff there. It's all business logic. Business logic, it's not only about getting the data from somewhere. Sometimes you are processing that data because you may get more data, but you is not interested in all of them. You may be interested. You may get hundreds of images, but you may be interested in only 10. Or you get a data which is not adaptable to the view straight away. You need to process it. So that's a kind of a start. Is it me who is doing it? No, it's Google is doing it. So there are Google it's not pure Google initiative. Still, there are community developers. Um, it's inside Google repository on a Git, and some Googlers are also doing it. And they have got nice samples over here, and they are comparing them as well. So this, this one, yeah. So they are saying that complexity is low, testability is high, and then with Dagger, testability is very, very high. Complexity is low. So they are comparing that different patterns, that if you just do without dependency injection, or if you do with data binding, or if you do with loaders and content programmers. So they are doing it. They have, I think it will go for a while once it becomes stable. Other things, I found that there is a talk as well on a YouTube. The guy, he also talks about the same MVP and some of the other links as well. This is me and MVP. I think the main idea is not about MVP. Main idea is that separation of concerns. If you can reuse your business logic more and more and more, because UI is always going to be changing. You cannot stay forever with one UI. It's going to be changing, and how quickly we can change it. Yeah. Any questions?
I was going to ask, did you look into any of the other MPX frameworks and see whether you are
Yeah.
for?
So even though MVC, because I also do development on iOS, I always compare. And MVC is a traditional MVC was having the interaction that you can actually access the model, but that was traditional. And then Apple provided that now you cannot talk to a model, but still it's not going to solve the purpose that because your controllers are going to be big. It's only what we are doing over here is that we are not doing anything special. We are MVC. Generally, MVC does not force us to have interfaces on the business logic side and the view side. But in case of MVC, if you can separate it out, the business logic from the controllers, because what people say that, how about if I say that controllers are views? But we don't actually consider that controllers and fragments are views. We say that they are actually controllers. They can control everything. But then we end up having more business logic inside them and how we share between if you want to change the UI. The only struggle bit is here is that how you can actually change the view without actually changing the business logic at all. That's the main idea, is that what I'm doing is just creating another object. But in order to get it going, that people need to come to the common standard that okay, talk about MVC, talk about that. Yeah, MVC is all same. It's also the same. I was reading an article where one person was saying that, yeah, MVC fits very well. Apple says that, but Apple is actually saying that you can have all of the things in one controller. But that's where the problem comes. And it's a similar thing on the Android side. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're proposing mentioned that on
Yeah.
yeah, it makes more sense. I'm sure it helps you that I want to show this kind of error.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the Android. Yeah. It's just, I'm just doing it one by one.
So can you explain that in detail? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking. I know the problem. I understand the problem, but I want to see how.
So for example, the presenter will tell you the show error of $10.
Right.
So we can have enums going
I
that.
want to
Yeah. Okay.
like sending that text to you. So you're kind of controlling the view.
Yeah. It's like it's fine if you want to show like static, use like static experience or just nothing. Go on, but if you're doing mixing like string,
Yeah. That,
into like objects and bits like calculating your user present it so
yeah. So that's the similar, right? Because what presenter needs to do is, if it is getting a dynamic message, for example, not a static, it will pass that straight away. Otherwise, it needs to pass that type of error. And then you should be aware about that. Okay, in this type And if it is a dynamic and it's not static, then obviously presenter will just pass the data. Yeah. Because it could be in the responsibility to show the track, it could be using that one. Yeah. Yeah.
How with the pattern, like how, and it's just like pretty decoupled, but in reality, when you're doing it, does the presenter, its data structure become pretty much 50%? Like you end up doing one to one. In reality, you're going to present anything rather than seeing how like the single presenter stuff like this.
No, so that's one to one. So one view, one presenter. They have one to one relationship.
Yeah.
You can share you can have multiple presenters for a view.
Yeah.
But you should have just one to one relationship.
Yeah, totally.
You will have
Does
no
it work
problem.
that when you're sort of constructing it, you tend to a single presenter that will ultimately be used by a single view? Like, I was thinking there that the daemon and password, if you want to reuse that logic, you might have another few reels of stuff if you don't want to see the question.
Yeah.
And then, like, would you do another presenter? Would you prefer to expand this?
So yeah, so that's interesting. That for example, you classic example, if I say that you send a hypothetical example, if you do log in and then you want to answer something before user gets to access to main thing. In that case, obviously, that particular thing may be shared across the app. You may want to share that challenge question or something across the app. So in that case, you can have an abstract presenter first that will have every logic which you want to share it. And then obviously view is again same, but you will have one more view. So you can have an abstract class which will have everything, and then you're just creating a complete object of that and displaying it, and then you have one to one. So in this way you're going to have one to one. Otherwise you end up sharing the presenter across the views, which is not very good because MVP says that you need one to one. Yeah, it will be more classes there.
Yeah.
But you by the time when it won't. What I think that it may not benefit once you have just the app, but it will benefit definitely once you start rolling it out. Say that okay, I want to redesign my UI, but I don't want to do that any business. Oh, that's easy. I don't need to worry about anything. I just need to. My presenters are already. I'm just changing a view. And another benefit of this one is mainly this particular pattern is not going to solve the Android problem that once you face that complication change or all of those things. This pattern will just allow you to have a unit testing going on a business level without having instrumentation, without having any types of this. They are all just big unit tests. So that's the idea that keep your models and presenters and just
Thanks very much. That was awesome. So I've come here before and talked about things like TensorFlow and Cordova and Firebase and different ways that you can use Google's software tooling resources to make things happen in your business and in the world. And Nick came up with the idea that we should actually have a little section of Google Developer Group about what he called Google in the community,
And I really like the idea, because what I think it can help us understand is sort of the way Google's models give us this sort of power to make things work. Google's really, obviously they make most of their money from advertising, but the kind of core functionality behind all that is their search capability. So if you think about, what does searching let us do? Well, I'm going to take you through kind of a hierarchy of kind of levels of search and impact, particularly since I was just involved in the GovHack event. Stefan came and gave a presentation about his Kiwi Playground app, and how we were essentially everything that happened in GovHack was there's a whole bunch of data out there in the world, problems that or opportunities for people to discover things, learn things, gain some insights, but they need to have software written to provide the functionality to access that information. And so the project that Stefan and the Tumbleweed team at GovHack got involved with was about Kiwi Playgrounds, but it was just one of 429 projects that got submitted in this year's GovHack event. And I couldn't survey all of them to find out how many of them actually did use Google technologies, but quite a few of them did. And really all this thing does is goes and looks at all of the playgrounds around the Auckland region and lets you zoom in on the map and find out about what's there for the kids to play with. And this was motivated because Stefan has one little girl and another one on the way, and they love to go to the playground on the weekends. And of all these hundreds of playgrounds, he wanted to be able to find out, which ones had the good slides, and then give everybody a chance to rate them. And we were, I think, one of the few teams that managed to actually complete an app and get it into the Play Store. But what does Google have to do with this? Well, they were one of the sponsors of the machine learning prize, and none of the prizes from GovHack have been awarded yet, but we should hear about this by the end of the month. And that was forgotten, something like a $1,000 prize or something like that. There's an organization that Google had founded back in 2005 called Google.org that they give away like $100 million a year in grants, and the people at Google work for hundreds of thousands of hours, and they make available $1 billion worth of products. And so GovHack is just one tiny piece of this big operation that Google has to actually try and have an impact on community. One of the parts of this is the Google for nonprofits, which is where they're making the products available. Another place where I see them adding tremendous value is in the academia. Anybody here use Google Scholar? It's a particular kind of a specialized search for academic papers. I was a PhD student up here at AUT for a while, and wished I had this feature, the Google Scholar Library. Once you've done your academic research, there were, in my day, a whole set of kind of archiving tools so that you'd find just that precise research paper that you wanted, and you could add it to your sort of collection of PDF files, and ultimately create that bibliography down at the end of your academic research. This tool will let you go in and pick that citation and find out all the things that it cites and bring all that into your library. And of course, what really matters is that you can find my PhD. When you start really looking at what a difference Google makes and what all of this sort of system of searching lets you do, besides getting into the government data or besides getting into the academic data, it's really about getting into the business data. And they have a thing they call the economic impact of Google. and a report about this that they see $165 billion of economic activity. I think this is just U.S. actually, with 1.4 million businesses using the AdWords and AdSense in 2015. Where do people go when they want to do business? They want to search on the internet, and that means they're going to be using Google. So Google obviously has some initiatives in this space to try and help people start their businesses. If you want to have an internet-based business, look into Google for Entrepreneurs. Or if you're helping a city to get on the map, they have this thing called GYOB, Get Your Business Online. Or for the folks in kind of the nonprofit space, or that are trying to get some training about how you can Googleize your business, they've got this Accelerate with Google program, and this is sort of what some of these. That's your Get Your Business Online is a step-by-step of figuring out how you get your content to be picked up by the Google search and for your business to show up on the map. And this Accelerate with Google thing is a whole academy of marketing, making your business website easier to find, and attracting customers, the stuff that we talked about during the Firebase presentation. This is, and then finally the Google for Entrepreneurs has these things that you can watch YouTube videos about how to be an entrepreneur using Google tools, and are going along. Has anybody been to one of the Google Business Group meetings? I know we have a meetup group in Auckland that is for sort of business development around Google businesses. We're all developers here. That's good. So that was my quick intro into the world of Google in the community, and some of the ways that that core technology allows us to reach beyond just our own particular project. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Yes. The data source came from Auckland Council. So we actually couldn't use the one that was sort of on their website. We had to contact the guy, and he gave us sort of a custom download of it. Julius years ago had made Family Places, which you got the
we got it from a few different places.
Yeah.
And we just put it all in the United States for the CSV for pushed it around the first time.
Yep.
So we just went and stuff on websites and stuff. So there was council. There were a few different places. There was like a few different.
But if you want some useful data, go to the GovHack site, and then they've got a reference to all the stuff that was made available during the GovHack event, and you can still grab that today. So they've been trying to organize some additional kind of follow-on meetings along with the awards ceremony, which is coming up in another couple of weeks. Great. Thanks a lot.
Exciting.
Let's power through it.
I love this.
All right, so what's up next? Loading. No, not ready for that. No, just killing all my slides. Don't look. All right. Announcements. Firstly, does anyone have any announcements? Any projects that you're working on? If you're looking for people, looking for things to collaborate with? Anything that you know, like in the local community that's been going on?
Projects that you're wanting to try out, test out, play with?
Yeah, true.
Apps that you're supporting?
Collaborators.
Curious if we're going to hire a business development manager for quantitative work.
Who, sorry?
Curious. Yeah, curious. It's not a direct kind of developer role that needs to be working with product development.
Okay. And that's at which company? Oh, okay. Is it a non-profit or what? Right. 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 Cool. Well, good luck with that.
Like the Pushpay is looking for both Android and iOS developers. So junior, intermediate plus sort of range. If you haven't been spammed by Constantine already, just come in. Yeah. Just come in. Speak afterwards. Be great to meet you.
Android or iOS? Cool. And just adding to that, if like we're keen to like grow this community and have positive feedback, but to do that, to be able to provide the content that you guys want, we need to hear from you guys. So come talk to us either now or in other events, or just post comments on Meetup, or send me an email, send us an email about what kind of content that you want to hear. Like, do you want more technical content? Do you want like actual code samples? Do you want more overview architecture stuff? Like, which Google technologies are you interested in? Is it like App Engine? Is it Android? Is it some of the web technologies? Is it some of the services like Firebase? All that kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot of content that we can focus on, but it's important that we understand what you're looking for so that we can cater more to it. Also, as John was saying, we are currently in the process of trying to start up a more coding sessions, more regular coding sessions, like mini hackathon type things, so that people from all skill levels, whether you're a beginner that wants to learn about Google technologies or an experienced developer that just wants to spend time with the community, teach people, or look for collaborators to work on projects, or learn something new. So we're looking to start that up, and together with that, I'm looking to start a bunch of community-driven projects which will be obviously non-profit. Initially in the conservation space, I've had experience in my partners in the conservation space. So if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, if you want to contribute, let us know. Otherwise, you'll probably hear more about it in the future. So moving on. Just one other thing, and that is
these things don't happen without people presenting. I will say this every time. I'm just going to say it again anyway. If you've got something that you know a little bit about, just a little bit about it, remember you can be the one-eyed person, so to speak, depending on the blind, and teach us all something new. Or if it's even just new to you, and we're going to see it through a person who's new to something that we have some experience with through their eyes and their experience. That's awesome as well. So please think about whatever that thing might be. It might be some little library, it might be playing with the Virgin API, it could be Kotlin, could be who knows what. But as you're doing things, if you see, you sort of recognize that you're doing something that's like maybe a little bit new or interesting, just in the back of your mind, think of, hey, maybe this might be like it doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be too fancy, it might just be like a 5-10 minute sort of overview of something you come across. It'd be really great.
security only succeeds if it gets input from the community itself. So moving on to the new section. Android Nougat was officially released over this since our last GDG. We've been tracking the previews quite heavily, so there's nothing really much to say besides it's the same thing except a little bit more stable. There are a bunch of features. If you're not familiar with it, take a look at the link. It's a really good release. There have been, a particular note, there have been some great security improvements. Something that they've recently posted about is you might have all heard about the stage fright vulnerabilities. Well, they've redone a lot of that code, so it's now immune to that type of attack. So that's, I'm sure you all want the latest version of Android on your phones, but it's another reason to sort of push towards getting more up to date, or getting your device updated more often. So for the handsets that are soon or currently getting Nougat, the Nexus 5X, 6P, and 9 currently have OTA updates. The 6P had some delays for a while, not entirely sure why, but it was likely either a security issue or instability issues. The LG V20, which was just recently announced, which I'll talk about in a moment, will be apparently the first phone installed with Nougat and will be released shortly. For those of you that are still using the Nexus 5, including myself, there is a stable-ish ROM of Nougat available out in the wild. It seems like it mostly works, but I'll probably wait until the stable CyanogenMod build of ROMs make it out. And of course, other manufacturers will likely follow near the end of this year or early next year. So there was a release from someone looking through the Nougat source code, who discovered how to enable this menu setting, which is basically something that Google is internally looking at and playing around with, which is allowing the user to be able to customize the bottom navigation bar, which would be quite neat. But it has some interesting implications in terms of devices that don't have that bottom navigation bar. Although then again, it might provide incentives for all manufacturers to start providing it. So maybe it'll get out to the wild, maybe it won't. Something to look out for. As I mentioned earlier, the LG V20 was announced. LG's phablet handset flagship. If you're into that kind of thing, definitely take a look at it, especially after all the news that the Note 7 has been getting. There are a bunch of rumors about Google Nexus devices, the new phones. One of the rumors is apparently that they're going to drop the Nexus naming in favor of the Pixel brand, and that the phones are going to be called Pixel and Pixel XL. They're going to be relatively premium devices, unlike previous years. So on the downside, expensive. On the plus side, the smaller handset will have flagship specs, so flagship processor and camera. So pros and cons. Additionally, there was a rumor about a Huawei tablet, a 7-inch tablet to replace the original Nexus 7 coming out by the end of the year. So look out for those. The ZenWatch 3 was announced. I have a ZenWatch. I rather like it. This one's a little more premium, but it's a good, relatively affordable entry to the Android Wear space. There was another phone that was announced. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but yeah, that happened. The Galaxy Note 7. Yeah, let's talk briefly about that. I'm sure you've all heard. There have been multiple instances where Note 7s have been found to explode. Either literally explode or violently catch on fire. I put this one up in particular because it is not a Note 7, so I just want to remind everyone that this can happen to any phone, but the Note 7 is happening at such frequency that they've done a full recall on all devices, to the extent that they have today announced an OTA update for all Note 7s, which forces or which limits the charge of a battery to 60% on Note 7. What I'm basically getting at is, if you know anyone that has a Note 7, make sure that they send it back to wherever they bought it as soon as possible. Samsung's announced that they have a series of temporary headsets available for Note 7 buyers, so there's absolutely no reason why you should be using one today. The new shipment with the fixed batteries, because it's a battery issue, will be available shortly. I don't know if it's in the next week or two, but yeah, they'll be available internationally shortly. But otherwise, if it's not exploding, it's actually a really good phone. So yeah, don't just write it off because of all these issues. Once it's fixed, it'll be a fantastic device, and it'll likely have a cheaper price because of all the negative media it's gotten. Google Duo, basically Google's simplified video messaging app was released. It really is incredibly simple. You select a user from your contacts list, you call them, and the neat feature that they've got going is that when you call someone, they can immediately see your face or your video, whereas the caller can only see the other person's video once the other person is picked up. So it gives the receiving end an ability to sort of prepare themselves to pick up the phone or to pick up the call. It's, as I said, it's very basic functionality. It's very likely to continue. They're very likely to continue adding features as time goes on. But it's just a very simple app, which if that's what you're after, then it's great. Check it out. Ara, which was Google's modular phone project, has reportedly been scrapped, or pretty much entirely scrapped. There was rumors that they might release something. At this stage, it seems like even if they do release something by the end of the year, they won't continue supporting and developing the technology. And there are various reasons behind that. But yeah, unfortunately, these moonshots don't always work out. I think this is the last thing I wanted to talk about. WaveNet speech synthesis, which is the same branch of Google, or same company, sub-company of Google, DeepMind, that recently won a bunch of Go games against some of the top professional players. It uses neural networks to analyze and train speech synthesis. And here what you can see is, using English and Mandarin, how the different speech synthesis techniques compare. So there's the concatenative approach, which basically takes a bunch of words and puts them together. So it splices them up and then puts them together depending on what it wants to say. There's the parametric, which tries to recreate the voice based off, well, instead of using real samples, it recreates the voice and then builds up audio based off this recreated voice. Then there's WaveNet, which actually gets rather high marks, and in some cases, in some languages, almost matches natural speech, which is the green bar. And this is based off surveys done to people who judged how human someone sounded. So 4.55 in English is an actual human speaking, and they gave them a score of 4.55 compared to the WaveNet approach of 4.21. And I just wanted to quickly show you, because it's actually quite neat. Let's see if we can get audio working. So just to give you an idea, this is parametric.
The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romance and adventure film directed by Randall Fleisig.
So you can, it's kind of familiar, right? It's the type of sound you've been hearing for quite a while. The next one is what Google is currently using for their OK Google commands.
The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romance and adventure film directed by Randall Fleisig.
And finally, you've got the new approach.
The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romance and adventure film directed by Randall Fleisig.
So you can hear that it's a lot more natural. It lacks the robotic snippets which the other two techniques have. And it's generally a really interesting approach to take. Additionally, the way that it works is it's being trained up on not only sounds but also like context. So if they train this algorithm from the sounds only and don't provide it context, it ends up with this natural sounding gibberish.
That was German, wasn't it?
It sounds like different languages, right? But it's actually just gibberish. And finally, if you train it based off, right, you can train it using different voice types. So you can make it sound, say for example, like a man, or
The avocado is a pear-shaped fruit with leathery skin. It's fresh and large sound.
and finally, you can even train it using music. And listen to this. You notice that it started quite softly, and then it sort of built up, and then it sounded quite violent. I'm just wondering whether that's exactly how our AI overlords will treat us. You know, they'll start off soft, and then before we know it, it's just Anyway, that's everything. That's everything. Oh yeah. Chromecast. Today, the Chromecast team announced that there's a preview program for Chromecast devices. The software that's installed on Chromecasts. If you're a developer, definitely take a look at this link to sign up to the preview program, so that you've got the latest software and you can test your apps, test everything before it gets out to the general public. The end. Thanks a lot for coming. Sweet. Is she recording? Oh yeah, sure.